to show you something really quick that you'll find interesting. These are two plum trees, two Japanese plum trees, and these have been grown in very organic rich, non-chemically treated ground. And I want to show you how dense all of the little roots are on these plants. I mean, it's almost like a sponge all up through here. So when you're looking at where you're going to get your trees from, if at all possible, find out if they grow in very high organic matter so you get root growth like this. I mean, that's a root off of this little bitty tree right here. It's that far. And if it's something where someone's nursery is growing it in bare soil where they keep it clear with chemicals and they're just constantly using herbicides and liquid nitrogen and stuff like that to get a quick growth out of the trees, you don't see all this type root stuff, and when you transplant them, they're not going to be able to absorb the nutrients as fast unless they have all these fine fibrous roots. Okay, these are the roots I'm talking about. You'll see all these porous ones, and I'm going to show y'all one that comes from a commercial type nursery. It'll have a harder time. This one will have an easier time getting established because it has all of this really cool root mass, where if it's done more commercially, they just struggle. So keep that in mind when you're buying your trees. Try to find out who's growing them, how they're growing them, and so that way they have the best start when you spend your money on it. Okay, the wind's blowing pretty hard right now, but these are our trees. I want you just to notice the difference between the roots. All the fibrous stuff you saw on the ones that's grown in high organic matter, they're not really here. This is just what a tree looks like when it's forced to live off chemicals, pretty much. Now, you know, I'm not saying whether right or wrong, good or bad, but it is something to take in mind. And that's why when you buy trees like these are stock trees. These are ours pears for me to propagate from. I want to make sure I'm getting them from a good source, which I did. And they just don't grow the same way the first couple of years because they don't have all the fibrous roots on there. And that's one reason I really think it's important when you're looking to buy trees. You can go and talk to someone at the nursery, and if they're growing a smaller amount of trees but take better care of them, even if they're a little bit more money, you're better off because you have all those roots that'll get nutrients to the tree so much quicker than if it's just more big roots like this and hardly any little feeder roots. There are a few that you can see in there, but there's just not a whole lot. So that's the difference. Just something to keep in mind when you're buying trees. I think you're better off buying smaller 2-3 foot trees. Much going to grow just as fast as this will because it won't go into shock the way this will. So I'll have to baby this more than I would if it was a smaller tree.